representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'd like to express our gratitude to you as the chair of the 1718 committee for your presentation of the 90-day report, and also to the Undersecretary General, Mr. Feldman, for his briefing on the launch by DPRK of a ballistic missile on the 28th of November. This new violation by Pyongyang of a Security Council resolution is cause for deep disappointment. Once again, we have to take stock of the fact that prospects for normalizing the situation on the Korean peninsula continue to be very distant. Without any doubt, this further demonstration of the open disregard by the DPRK of the demands in the resolutions of the Security Council and the norms of international law justifies the strongest condemnation. Russia does not accept DPRK's goal of acquiring the status of a nuclear power and has supported all UN Security Council resolutions demanding an end to the missile and nuclear programs of Pyongyang in the interest of denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. At the same time, for us it is clear that there is no military solution to the problems on the Korean peninsula. In the current conditions, we strongly call on all concerned parties to stop this spiral of tension which seems to follow each cycle of reaction and then counter-reaction. It is essential to take a step back and carefully weigh the consequences of each move, to revise the policy of mutual threats and intimidation, because this policy only leads to consequences or goals that are opposite of those that are sought after. In the interests of the entire international community, to resolve this situation on the Korean peninsula must be done only through peaceful means. In the meantime, until the states of the region did not show their readiness to pay due attention to the political components of all the sanctions resolutions, including Resolution 2375, the situation will continue to deteriorate and moving in a vicious circle. Mr. President, sanctions against Pyongyang are simply an instrument aimed at involving it in constructive negotiations and should not be used either for to strangle the DPRK economically or to intentionally worsen the humanitarian situation. This in particular pertains to the illegal unilateral restrictions that strike at civilian sectors that have no link to the missile and nuclear programs of the country. Over the past 2.5 months, the United States and its allies seem to have tried the patience of Pyongyang with its activities, including unplanned and undeclared military maneuvers, or recently introduced unilateral sanctions. And just recently announced the unprecedented military and air exercises by the United States and South Korea near the borders of the DPRK. They were just announced last week. Now, against the backdrop of the calm and quiet by Pyongyang of these hostile moves against the DPRK, force us to really think about the sincerity of the statements by Washington about its preference for peaceful means of resolving the crisis around the DPRK. We believe that this time should have been used for concrete steps to establish direct contacts with Pyongyang rather than further escalating tensions. A comprehensive solution to the problems of the Korean peninsula is possible only in the framework of a comprehensive military and political detente in Eastern and Northern Asia, easing military confrontation and establishing trust among the countries of the region. This is precisely the approach that was proposed by Russia and China in their joint statement on the 4th of July, and they proposed a roadmap of a gradual move towards a settlement, starting with the principle of suspension for suspension, which envisions the DPRK stopping missile and nuclear tests, while at the same time the United States and South Korea decreasing the scale of their military exercises. This, in turn, would pave the way to discussing the principles of peaceful coexistence between Washington and Pyongyang and resumption of the inter-Korean dialogue. I think everyone must be clear that moving towards a comprehensive settlement of the problems of the Korean peninsula will be difficult as long as DPRK will feel that its security is threatened. It is precisely this way that Pyongyang interprets the extreme military activity in the region, which takes the form of regular large-scale maneuvers and exercises by the United States and its allies, including sending strategic bombers, naval task forces, and aircraft carriers to the region. An additional destabilizing factor in the region is the ramping up on the territory of the Republic of Korea of elements of the American anti-missile system THAAD. We have stated more than once that these kinds of moves are not only an irritant, but overall undermine the military balance in the region and also threaten the security of neighboring states. Today, all countries involved must do everything they can not to provoke each other, but rather to show restraint and not to allow further steps that could escalate tensions further. In connection with this, we strongly urge the DPRK to stop its missile and nuclear tests, and we call on the United States and the Republic of Korea to refrain from their large-scale and unplanned military maneuvers that are to start at the beginning of December that will only inflame an already explosive situation. Mr. President, the position of Russia on resolving the situation around the Korean peninsula remains unchanged. An effective search for a long-term and mutually acceptable solution to all the range of problems can only be done through tireless and active diplomatic efforts. In this context, we call on all sides to immediately begin work on finding a formula for a political and diplomatic settlement. We don't see any rational alternative to this path. Thank you.